ZenLedger is the best way to complete your cryptocurrency taxes. ZenLedger is light years ahead of any other way to complete your taxes. ZenLedger is powerful for three main reasons. First, it's very easy to have your data imported into ZenLedger, and then it just does your cryptocurrency taxes as far as gains and losses. ZenLedger can output tax forms that help with the process. The third is it will go through 14 major problems that will have people complete their taxes incorrectly unless these 14 major issues are navigated just right. And ZenLedger handles all 14 cases. A bit later in this video, we will cover each of these 14 nightmares and then how ZenLedger solves them. So the first thing you do is just upload your currencies. And then when it's time to go to Coinbase, so that's imported my transactions from Coinbase. Then I click on Next. ZenLedger will let you flag your personal versus non-personal purchases with cryptocurrency. This is an important stage and the only way to have your cryptocurrency taxes done correctly. Next, you'll see ZenLedger with the robot moving around. That means it's doing the calculation process to figure out your taxes. There's a lot involved with that, and it's going through that process. Next, you'll end up seeing a LIFO and FIFO view of what your taxes will be with either FIFO or LIFO. You can flip through the years, and then you can decide on using FIFO or LIFO, and then it's completed your cryptocurrency taxes for all years. Next, you'll see that ZenLedger will let you go open up a tax year, and then you can go open up the Schedule D form or the 8949 forms, and then these allow you to very easily get the forms you need. You'll probably review them with a tax professional or go over them yourself in order to slot those into your taxes and complete your taxes. These 8949 forms will include rows. Each of those end up being when cryptocurrency was purchased, the lifetime of it, the cost basis, and the proceeds, along with the gain and the loss. It'll calculate your capital gains or losses this way in order for you to then have the data you need to easily complete your taxes. It's important to note that when you do a certain number of buys or a certain number of sells, the number of rows in here might be 10 times as long as the number of cryptocurrency buys or sells you've made, because there's splits and fractures that happen along the way. There could be taxable events along the way. There could be a lot of factors that break apart any of your buys or sells and turn them into many rows in here. The other one is your Schedule D form, and with this, it's important that you can factor in your any other investment capital gains or losses outside of cryptocurrency, but after that, you have it filled out and you can be ready for your taxes to be completed. Next is that ZenLedger is the most private and secure way to go complete your taxes. You can be assured with ZenLedger that your data is kept private and secure. In other places to do cryptocurrency taxes, people have found that they've uploaded their sensitive data, and then they've found that they're receiving a large number of spam or marketing emails. The next we'll go over 14 big problems that'll happen to make your tax calculations incorrect, because cryptocurrency is very tricky. And we'll go through these 14, and ZenLedger pulls apart all the complex detail and does all the right calculations in order to make sure your taxes are done correctly. The first one is called like kind or 1031. So we've seen in the cryptocurrency space a misunderstanding, and the misunderstanding has been that people thought that they can take an exchange and they can bring in one cryptocurrency and they can make trades into other cryptocurrencies from that and not have taxable events because they call them like kind. And so in non-cryptocurrency, in certain cases, you can do this. ZenLedger has worked with a long list of tax attorneys from top firms, and we've gone over the implications of this. And so the thing that we've found is that you cannot use like-kind exchanges with cryptocurrency, and you can't do that in any year. And so this is a big misunderstanding in the cryptocurrency space. And so we want to let you know, we've worked with a lot of attorneys, and the final answer is that you cannot use this. And ZenLedger completes your taxes by doing this correctly and not having these kind of incorrect calculations rolled into your taxes. The next is that on January 1st, 2018, the Trump tax law took effect, and that also applies to the 2017 tax year filing that people will make. So the issue is it calls out cryptocurrency in specific. So we've talked to attorneys about these laws, and the main thing is the before and after does not have an effect on cryptocurrency taxes. The main misunderstanding is in the cryptocurrencies market is that they thought they could do like kind before the tax law, but as we talked with attorneys, the answer was you couldn't. So in general, the taxes are done the same before and after the law. It's just that you cannot use like kind exchange before or after the law. The next issue is that when you have movements of your cryptocurrency across exchanges or across addresses on the blockchain, most other ways will come along and often use one exchange and calculate your gains or losses. We found that this is one of the biggest ways to get your taxes done completely incorrectly, and you're not paying the IRS enough taxes, or in a lot of cases you're overpaying the taxes. So the issue is when cryptocurrency is moving in other cases, you might move Litecoin from one place to another place, and it might bridge a tax year. What will end up happening is in a former tax year, you just moved it, so it's not a taxable event, and that's right. But very often software will only see the other exchange, and it will not understand the connection of the currency in the other account is really connected to this one. So it'll miss a large amount of the gain in value, and then your taxes are done very incorrectly. Then you're not paying enough taxes, and you can get in big trouble. The next big issue is splits or fractures. And the issue is when you buy cryptocurrency, you're normally going to move it around, or you're going to use some of it, or you're going to go trade some of it for other cryptocurrencies, and you'll often use some of it for each of these different cases. Well, the issue is your buy almost always splits and fractures over and over and over, and people often don't realize how much this happens. The big impact to taxes is that each time that this happens, it affects the lifetime of the investment. It affects long-term versus short-term capital gains. It affects which years they get filed in. It affects fees. It affects lots and lots of other things. Sometimes tax events happen to some of them earlier than others, and so for lots of reasons, this creates a lot of transaction calculations compared to a smaller number of buys and sells that you make. This makes your taxes harder. It makes them very error prone. And ZenLedger does holistic accounting in order to understand the ownership of your cryptocurrency from the beginning, including as it moves around. And so as all these splits and fractures happen, ZenLedger tracks every single part of it accurately in order to make sure that you're paying the taxes that you owe, and that you're not overpaying, and then all the parameters are accurate. Fees, long-term, short-term, which year they're filed in, and a lot more. So the next issue is long-term and short-term capital gains. Again, ZenLedger is one of the only ways to get this accurate because ZenLedger has the Grand Unified Accounting System for cryptocurrency. It understands where you bought it or received it, and then understands where you moved it around or where splits and fractures happened. It then can make sure that the long-term and short-term capital gains are done correctly and handle them in all different situations. The next big issue is the lifetime of your cryptocurrency. So separate than short-term and long-term capital gains, when you have cryptocurrency and you've used some of it here and you trade some of it there, all those splits and fractures happen. In what tax year they appear ends up being a big factor. Also, people might often know that certain things are taxable events, and then those cause you to have to go file taxes in certain years instead of other years, and that gets very, very tricky. The next factor is that ZenLedger will import all your data ever since you bought the first cryptocurrency purchase or received cryptocurrency. And this is the only way to do taxes correctly. And what it'll do is when it completes the taxes, it'll output your taxes for every year. And the reason this is important is when you've bought cryptocurrency or started the ownership and then made sells, all the fractures will come along and often have a certain buy have sells happen in different years. And then how one year was calculated will sell parts and it'll leave other remaining parts. So the only way to get the later years done correctly is to get the former years done accurately so it knows what remains and all of the lifetime factors that go into that. And then that allows your later years to be done accurately. ZenLedger imports all your data and does the big picture calculation of everything. And so you get all tax years, you get it all reconciled, all in one place. The next factor is that ZenLedger does a very advanced way to do fair market values, and that is the only way to do your taxes correctly. So if you download your statements from your exchange, the problem is when you use one cryptocurrency to trade into another cryptocurrency, you don't know the US dollar value when you trade it out of one and when you trade it into the other. And so ZenLedger ends up using extra separate data in order to find out the values of the two currencies that you may have traded 9 months ago or 5 years ago, and find the US dollar fair market value when those trades or other taxable events happened. It'll then store the fair market value, and that's the only way to get the cost basis and the proceeds set accurately, especially in all the tricky cases. This is very, very complicated. You can only do this with historic prices across many years and many cryptocurrency types, and ZenLedger just takes care of it for you automatically. The next is that trading between one cryptocurrency and another, which is how almost all altcoins are purchased, ends up going through some tricky processes that require a lot of factors around tax calculations. They end up creating more taxable events. They end up changing the lifetime durations before and after. They end up needing fair market values. The way fees are rolled in are very complicated. They very almost always create splits and fractures. All of that's very complex. And again, ZenLedger tracks it all and pulls it all together. The next area is that ZenLedger will come along and it will prompt you with a screen to go pick if certain transactions where you've spent cryptocurrency were either personal uses like gifts or buying products, or they were non-personal. Non-personal means they were used for investment purposes or for a business. Getting this accurate is important because that's the only way to get your taxes completed accurately. If you ended up using cryptocurrency for personal reasons, and that usage will come along with a number of splits that go into that, if any of those ended up being a capital loss, you cannot claim that on your taxes. Otherwise, it's a tax violation, which is pretty severe. If you ended up using them for investment or business purposes, then you can claim the capital loss. So ZenLedger makes it really easy to pull up the transactions where you've used them to send them to somebody else or spend them, and then it lets you flag them very easily and use very little time, and then it flags them all accurately, and then the taxes are then calculated accurately. The next factor is that you can either pick first in, first out, or last in, first out, FIFO or LIFO. Which you pick can save you a lot of money in your taxes. ZenLedger will calculate all your years of taxes, both with FIFO and with LIFO. It'll then show you the tax difference between the two. You can flip through years, and so you can see the difference between all of your years. So one thing we found out from tax attorneys is that you must pick FIFO or LIFO, and you must stay consistent with that setting across all of your cryptocurrency. That means all of your exchanges, and that means every year. So with ZenLedger, it'll calculate them holistically, let you compare and pick one, and then it'll apply that to all tax years and make them completed accurately. Also, if you try to pick them in one way one year and the next way the next year, you'll almost certainly not match up the values and your taxes will be highly inaccurate. The next big area are fees. So fees drain cryptocurrency over and over and over along the way. It could be 1.5%, and that happens as you buy it and as you sell it. It can happen as you trade them, as you move them, and lots of other actions. And so ZenLedger ends up finding the fees all along the way, and because you can factor those out of your gains, you can end up not paying those fees because you're not paying those in your capital gains, and it saves you money on the fees. So it lets you be smart and save money. The next factor is FinCEN for reporting of foreign currency ownership that makes sure that you're not money laundering. So what very few people know in cryptocurrency is that almost all exchanges, almost every one where you're buying an altcoin, those are foreign-based exchanges. So people don't realize it, but when they move their cryptocurrency to these foreign-based exchanges, then there's important FinCEN filings you must make. So the ZenLedger product tracks how much currency you own and then advises you on how to do this accurately. So unlike the IRS, where they might have a lot more fees before you would end up going into jail, with FinCEN, if you do not file and file accurately, you can end up going to jail. And so it's critical that you get FinCEN filings handled accurately for cryptocurrency owners. The next ends up being Coinbase. So Coinbase has a bit of support in their settings for tax issues. The issue is that there's a lot of reasons you can't use these for your taxes in all cases, in many, many cases. So the issue is Coinbase will track various things inside their exchange. But even if you only use Coinbase as your only exchange, if you're sending and receiving currencies, if you end up doing a lot of other factors, then there's cases where the various aspects of the fair market values when they receive and when they're sent and when splits happen and all these cases, ZenLedger ends up being for Coinbase owners to make sure they get their taxes done correctly for a long list of cases. Cryptocurrency owners should almost always file a tax extension. You can file a tax extension by April 15th in order to give you many more months in order to complete your cryptocurrency taxes or your full taxes. This is a great way to go because then you can take your time to work with a tax preparation specialist in order to get your taxes completed. So if you end up having very significant amounts of taxes due, it's best to work with a tax professional. They might have you file an estimated taxes early in order to let you have that extension and still not get in trouble. Sign up with ZenLedger, and if you find that there's any exchange or anything else that we don't support currently, just notify us, and we will be adding exchanges and other support, and then we will work with you over time and get your taxes completed. Next are people who want to work with a CPA in order to complete their taxes. ZenLedger is an incredible way to go for people that want to work with a CPA. We have an incredible set of features launching for people who want to work with their CPA that's coming very soon. These features are very, very powerful. So instead of having your CPA spend 30 hours trying to go do huge numbers of calculations, you can end up saving a lot of billable hours. Additionally, CPAs will refuse to work with you because they don't have the time to go through all those hand calculations by hand. They will love to work with you and us with ZenLedger in order for us to do the math on a large quantity of transactions, and then everything is cleaned up for them so they can have less billable hours, they can fit you in their schedule, and you can end up having a triple check on your taxes. ZenLedger is light years ahead of any other way to complete your cryptocurrency taxes. It's a way for you to have your tax gains calculated, and you can work with your tax professional in order to double check everything and have them submitted very cleanly. So with ZenLedger, it can save you time, it can help make sure everything is accurate, and it lets you sleep well at night knowing that you can file your taxes and not have big problems later.